Today, we are going to talk about one of the absolute hardest things a relationship can go through: infidelity. When an affair is discovered, it can honestly feel like your whole world is ending. But it doesn't have to be the end of the story. Using a framework that's grounded in decades of solid research, we're going to walk through a roadmap for healing, a path that can take you from that initial crisis all the way to recovery. So let's start right at that moment, the moment the old world ends. This quote from a research participant, wow, it just captures that seismic shift perfectly, doesn't it? There's this sharp, undeniable dividing line. There's the before, when life had a certain story, a reality you thought you could count on. And then there's the after, when that entire story just shatters into a million pieces. This isn't some bump in the road. It's a complete redefinition of your life's timeline. That feeling that nothing will ever be the same again, it is so real, and it's the first thing we have to understand. So, let's start right there, at that moment of impact, the discovery. It is so important to understand that the pain of infidelity isn't just about feeling sad or angry. No, it's often a deep, profound trauma that attacks your core sense of safety and even your sense of reality itself.
And this experience actually has a clinical name: betrayal trauma. And that is not an exaggeration at all. Researchers have found that our brains respond to this kind of betrayal in the exact same way they respond to other major traumas, like combat or a serious accident. Why? Because the one person in the world you depended on for safety has suddenly become the source of your deepest pain. And that creates this massive, unbelievable psychological conflict.
And this is what that trauma actually feels like day to day. Your entire world is just turned upside down. You can't trust your own memories anymore. You start wondering, was any of it real? You might find yourself replaying scenes over and over in your head, making it impossible to focus on work or even simple tasks. You're constantly on high alert, scanning for the next threat. And your emotions are all over the place, from intense rage to deep grief to just feeling numb. And maybe worst of all, you feel like you've lost yourself. Who are you if the life you thought you built was a lie? These are all classic, and I want to stress, completely normal trauma responses.
Okay, so acknowledging the trauma is step one. But the very next and obviously most important question is, how in the world do you move forward from that? Well, the good news is that recovery isn't just some random walk in the dark. There is actually a structured path, a roadmap, that can guide couples from that initial chaos toward real healing.
And this timeline here gives a much-needed sense of structure to what feels like total chaos. So phase one is all about stopping the bleeding. It's triage. The focus is on immediate safety, trying to manage those overwhelming emotions, and setting some really firm ground rules. Then phase two is where the deeper work starts, trying to make sense of what happened and truly mourning the relationship you thought you had. And finally, phase three is all about building something entirely new. And look at the timeframes here. This is a marathon, not a sprint.
Now, to navigate these phases, many therapists turn to a proven model. The Gottman method, which is based on decades of relationship research, offers this really clear three-part framework. And the very first step, and honestly maybe the hardest, is what's called atonement.
Here's the model in full: atone, attune, and attach. And you can see it's a really logical progression. Think about it. You can't rebuild connection, that's attune, or intimacy, that's attach, until the unfaithful partner has properly atoned for the betrayal. This first step, atonement, lays the entire foundation for everything that comes next. Without it, the whole thing just collapses.
So here's the crucial point, and it's a really hard one for some people to swallow. Dr. Gottman is completely unequivocal about this. The partner who had the affair must accept 100% of the blame for the choice to have an affair. Now, were there problems in the marriage? Maybe, probably. But those problems did not cause the affair. The choice to step outside the relationship was a one-sided decision, and healing just cannot begin until that is fully owned, with zero blame shifting or excuses.
And atonement itself has two critical parts. This table breaks it down perfectly: responsibility and accountability. So responsibility is all about owning the past. It's saying, I did this, and I understand it caused you immense pain. It's internal. But accountability, that's about owning the future. It's saying, here is what I am actively doing day in and day out to repair the damage and to make sure this never, ever happens again. It's all external. It's all about action. Real atonement requires both.
Okay, so once that foundation of atonement is starting to be laid, the couple can begin the slow, really difficult work of rebuilding trust. And this process has some absolute, non-negotiable requirements.
Let's be crystal clear on this one. For the relationship to have any chance at all of healing, all contact with the affair partner has to stop, immediately and permanently. I'm talking no closure conversations, no "we can still be friends" texts, no secretly checking their social media. That door has to be slammed shut and locked. This is the first, most basic proof of commitment to the relationship.
The next step is a period of what we call radical transparency. Now, this is not about creating some kind of permanent surveillance state. It's a temporary but absolutely essential measure to help the betrayed partner's nervous system finally calm down. Remember, their reality was shattered. They need a period of verified truth to feel safe again. So that means open access to phones and schedules and patiently answering the same questions over and over. And maybe most importantly, as you see on that first point, it means a full and honest disclosure right from the start. Uncovering new lies later, what's known as staggered disclosure, is described by so many as being even more traumatic than the original discovery itself.
So how can you tell if the remorse is real? This slide shows the critical difference between actions that heal and actions that just inflict more harm. Is the unfaithful partner leaning into the pain they caused, listening without getting defensive? Or are they trying to deflect it, making excuses, or pressuring their partner to just get over it? Genuine remorse is patient. It gets that healing takes a long time. Blame shifting is impatient. It prioritizes the cheater's comfort over their partner's healing, and it will absolutely kill any chance of recovery.
So, if a couple actually manages to navigate this incredibly difficult path, what does the future even look like? Well, it's important to be realistic here. The main goal is healing, but the outcome itself can vary.
While the numbers vary, clinical experience shows a pretty hopeful trend. A lot of couples, something like 2/3, who really commit to this hard work end up reporting that the relationship becomes stronger, more intimate, and way more honest than it ever was before. But, and this is so important, choosing to separate can be an equally valid and healthy outcome. The goal is healing for everyone involved, not necessarily saving the relationship at all costs.
And for those who do rebuild, something pretty amazing can happen. It's a phenomenon called post-traumatic growth. This crisis forces couples to finally confront issues they might have been ignoring for years. They learn to communicate in totally new ways. They stop taking each other for granted. The affair becomes this incredibly painful but powerful catalyst for creating a fundamentally better and more authentic relationship.
But let's manage our expectations. Look at this number. Healing from infidelity typically takes a minimum of 1.5 to 2 years. It is a long, slow process. There are going to be good days and really, really bad days. There are triggers and setbacks. Patience is not just a virtue in this process, it is an absolute necessity for both partners.
And that brings us to our final question, and it's a big one. A lot of people think that recovery means going back to the way things were before. But the truth is, you can't. That old relationship with its unspoken rules and its implicit trust is gone forever. So the real question becomes, can the two of you use the rubble of what was broken to build something completely new? Something more honest, more resilient, and ultimately more meaningful? The answer to that question is what truly defines the future.